Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with me. Today, I'm super excited to introduce Jill, a longtime partner of ShipBob and a good friend of mine, to give a little background on Inventory Planner. It helps e-commerce merchants save time and money when purchasing inventory to better meet customer demands. Now integrated with over 30 platforms, including marketplaces, accounting platforms, and inventory management systems, and of course, ShipBob. Inventory Planner supports merchants as they grow to see information from all their sales channels. So to kind of kick things off, if everyone can put in the chat your biggest inventory hurdle in 2022, and then hopefully if we have time, we can have Jill answer them live. And I am now seeing all the comments about how I was muted, how embarrassing. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and kick things off to Jill.
Hey, if that's the worst thing that happens today, I think you're good. So
I think you will.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everybody. So really excited to talk to you today, just to nerd out on some inventory topics here. So we're going to talk through managing your inventory. A little bit of background on me is that, kind of who the heck am I to talk about this stuff? Is that I used to be a professional crazy dog lady, and this is my dog. So I show him off every chance I get. So this is Fenway. I ran a store that sold dog supplies, so toys, treats, collars, leashes, all the good stuff. So he was our chief product tester there. I took over an existing e-commerce brand. So the fun thing was that we had data already. We weren't starting from scratch, so very fortunate there. But operationally, things had a lot of room for improvement. Let's call it that. And one of the things, one of the places where we started out was not knowing what to order, when to order, how much. We really had no system. I mean, our system, if you could call it that, was walking around in the warehouse trying to figure out what we should order. There's a blank shelf over there, what used to be there. I mean, I hope that makes your toes curl hearing about that, because pro tip, that's not the way it should be. So there is a better way. So started looking around for better systems, a better way to figure out what we should be ordering to manage our cash flow. I mean, it's really about getting to better cash flow, right? So that's when I came across Inventory Planner, and then more broadly, demand forecasting. So we're going to talk about demand forecasting. What is that? So demand forecasting is using past behavior of your customers, what they've already purchased, what they've already spent their money on, in order to predict what they're likely to want in the future. That way you can anticipate it, you have the stock, and you're not missing out on revenue because you're out of stock. So this means having what your customers want, when they want it, where they want it. So if you're selling on marketplaces, on your own site, if you have East Coast, West Coast warehouses, having those items where your customers are shopping for them is really important. So you're not missing out on that revenue. So we're going to dig into now some real keys to forecasting accurately. So I come across a lot of people who have spreadsheets where they're trying to figure out what should we be ordering, how much are we going through. And so figuring out what are some things to hone in on and focus on so that you're getting better forecasting of what your customers are likely to want. So I think the place to start here is figuring out how much are we selling? What's our run rate? How much are we going through? So you could start out with a simple average. We sold this many over this many days. In particular, you're going to want to focus on how much do customers purchase when an item is available. So if you are out of stock and take that item either off of your site, you make it unavailable for purchase, no sales doesn't mean a lack of demand. It means that they couldn't buy it. Okay, so that's an important consideration of when was it available for sale, meaning did you have stock or not? So let's walk through an example of this. So let's say we sold 30 units over 30 days. It looks like we're selling 1 unit a day. But when we look closer, what if we were out of stock for half the month? And so customers only could purchase that over 15 days. We've just doubled what our sales velocity looks like. So here's 1 unit, 2 unit, but think about this at scale. 10,000, 20,000. I mean, you can see how this really changes the consideration of how much do we need to have on hand if we're looking ahead to optimizing our inventory and not running out of stock. So this can make a huge consideration for those in stock and out of stock days. Next, I want you to think about what type of product is it, because we're going to have different forecasting methods. So what I mean by that, just broadly, is, for example, seasonal or non-seasonal items. So let's dig into some examples. Here's a few things for the visual learners. So seasonal items, let's think ahead. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. So say I was selling a leprechaun dog toy. What is the relevant period in the past of those customer sales that I want to use in order to anticipate how many of those dog toys to have on hand? Is the relevant period November and December? No, it's last year, probably in February, getting into March, if we're anticipating that mid-March holiday. So think about what is the relevant period of time. For seasonal items, we're looking at the same months the prior year. So there's two considerations here. One, we're looking at what was that pattern over the last year. And to clarify, seasonal items can be like a leprechaun dog toy. It could also be things that are for sale all year long, but the demand for them changes based on maybe weather, holidays, back to school, anything that might change the demand at different times of the year, that can make an item seasonal. So we're looking at that pattern over the last year, peaks, valleys, when do things drop off, and kind of mirroring that for the coming 12 months. But you can see that we aren't just copy pasting last year's numbers, right? It's we need a little more insight than that. So in addition to getting that pattern over the last year, we're also looking at what is the trend consideration? What is the year over year trend? And I think now that we're almost 2 years into pandemic sales, this is really interesting, where we're looking at what are those trends excuse me, for, okay, what sold during 2020 compared to 2021? Did we see, what kind of increase did we see that we can apply then to 2022? So we're looking at the last 12 months compared to the prior 12 months in order to figure out that trending. So that's why we see that forecasted period is just a little bit lower, because we had a downward trend from 2 years ago to last year. So that's seasonal forecasting. Something where we're looking at non-seasonal items, you can look at both recent sales to get that baseline of how quickly items are moving, but also we know that a lot of times demand isn't just a flat line. It's not just constant. I mean, how much easier would our lives be if it was? But there's more to it. Is there a trend? If there's an increasing trend, if this is more and more popular, we want to anticipate that. We want to get ahead of that trend, because otherwise we're going to run out of stock too soon. So two elements there. We're looking at how quickly is that foundational piece, the sales velocity, plus is it moving in a certain direction that we would add on top of that. One other consideration that I would pass along for non-seasonal items is when you're thinking about really trendy items where the sales velocity can change a lot and very suddenly. So in that case, you may want to look at a very short amount of time. That could be 30 days, it could be 14 days. We work with a fashion company that looks at the weekly rate, and then they're comparing several weeks in a row to really stay on top of those trends and figure out, okay, what do we need to get another production run going? What can we drop if the demand is decreasing? Okay, so for those trendy items, look at a short amount of time. If you have more stable selling items, look at a longer period of time. You'll see a less volatile forecast and kind of recommendation of what to purchase in the future. Okay, so That's how we look at the information in the past. How do we apply it in the future? So, uh, if you're feeling overwhelmed by data, we have a lot of information coming at us. Um, how do we figure out what to order? How do we make sense of all of this data? And at the same time, um, we usually don't have enough money to buy everything under the sun, so we have to make choices about what we're going to purchase, right? So I'm just going to point out a few things here to focus on to start. So one is looking at what kind of profit are we going to lose out on if we aren't ordering these items. So really what we're trying to get at is, if I spend $10,000 on inventory, what do I get out of it? Is it 20,000? Is it 100,000? Okay, we want to look at that profit, basically the ROI on your investment in your inventory, to help prioritize and say, okay, I'm going to maximize based on forecasted demand and our profit margins where I'm going to start purchasing. And then the other stuff might just have to wait. We might remove it from the catalog. You can make decisions like that by prioritizing these items. So I think looking at your forecasted profit relative to what you should purchase to not run out of stock is a good starting point. You can also look at what we have here is replenishment retail. That means the price of the item multiplied by how many units you should purchase so you don't run out of stock. Meaning, okay, here's how much we can bring in based on making this order and having this inventory on hand. So I would say, looking at your most valuable items, ranking them, and then you can really kind of triage those decisions and make choices about, let's get these items first, spend our limited cash in these ways. Okay. Replenishment, ordering, this is always the most exciting part of the forecasting. We want to get in new products. We want to make sure we're making a lot of profit. When we're looking at improving stock turn, do not forget to look at your overstock. When I was a merchant, this is what was killing our stock turn, was this overstock. We had collars and leashes and harnesses in, 8 sizes and 8 colors, and you're not going to talk a Chihuahua owner into ordering the one made for the Great Dane, so it's like, how do we get this stuff out of here? And like I said, I know that this is less exciting to move out your overstock, but think about this in terms of your cash flow, where this is like little stacks of cash or maybe big stacks of cash in your warehouse just sitting there that is not paying salaries, rent, buying more inventory that's going to be more productive, marketing, etc. You need to get this liquid, move it out of your warehouse so it can do something for your business. Another word of caution is that a mistake I made was being way too precious about trying to squeeze every last penny out of the overstock and really like, oh, I don't want to mark it down this and that much. I mean, if I'm seeing something like what we're showing on the screen here, this is going to be around for 18 months, just if we kind of leave things to go as they are. We don't have any plan for promotion or anything. I've got bills due before 18 months. That's not going to work. We've got to get it out of here. So I think just being a lot more aggressive, especially about these really slow sellers, to produce some cash for your business and use that in more productive ways is something that you can really take some action on. I'll have my email up in a minute, but feel free to drop me a line. Overstock is a whole nother topic on how to move it out, whether you're bundling, marking down price. There's a few strategies to get some things out of there. So don't forget about overstock. So in the end, by a combination of ordering the right things, adjusting our pricing for profitability, and getting rid of that overstock, chipping away at the overstock, we were able to improve our stock turn by 8x, which means our cash flow was better, which means the company was eventually acquired instead of going out of business. So, the cash flow really is, I think, as all of you probably know, really the lifeblood. And so, like, how do we maintain that? How do we make sure it's healthy and really producing to maximum benefit for our company? One other example that I'm going to squeeze in here before we open up for questions is another company I was working with basically decreased how much they were ordering at a time. So say that they were ordering for 6 weeks at a time and they cut that down to 3 weeks. They're like a pretty drastic cutback. So they're ordering a lot more often, but smaller amounts. They were able to decrease the stock cost. Stock cost means how much is my inventory worth when I paid my vendors for it. Decrease that by $1.5 million in 6 weeks. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money really quickly that now is liquid in their business and they can use it in other ways. So just a huge, this isn't without risk. So they're much more likely to go out of stock. They have to have their operations in order, and they really had tightened up their operations, and that's what facilitated this. But thinking about, how do we control our stock, optimize our stock to meet customer demand and help out our cash flow as well. So here's my information. I'm going to be hanging around. We're going to do questions here. I'll hang out in the room, in the booth as well for other questions. But my email is here. We also have a free trial that you can test it out for yourself. There's always new questions when you see your own data in a system, I think. So it's helpful to say, yeah, I do need to get on top of ordering that, or here's how much overstock we have, to see what's selling in your store. So
Awesome.
do we have any questions that are coming in?
We do. So I know we're at time, so let's sneak one quick one in. Stephanie said, is the app able to pass info to ERPs like NetSuite?
Yes. So ERPs, yes. We do not have an integration with NetSuite, but we do with quite a few with ERPs, with inventory management systems, things like that. So if you want to go to our website, click on integrations, you'll see the 30 platforms that we integrate with there. And ShipBob. So that's another option. And you can sync over your purchase orders with ShipBob, which is a really nice way to kind of just streamline your operations as well. So yeah, good question.
Awesome. Well, I went ahead and linked the booth, the inventory planner booth. So if we didn't get to your questions, I know we're right at time, which is super annoying, but you can have some one-on-one time with Jill. So just hop into our booth and ask her any questions. I personally am a huge fan of inventory planner and of Jill. So want to say thank you again so much for having us. And thanks everyone for bearing with me on being muted. And the next session will start in about 5 minutes. So I will see you guys all then. So thank you again, Jill.
Thanks, Carly. Great to see you.
See ya. Bye.